What is up, guys? Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to create a full screen background image using HTML and CSS. So like any other HTML file, we have to start out with the skeleton. So the declaration doc type HTML, the HTML tag, the head tag, the body tag, as well as the style tag. So first things first, we need to display the full screen background image. So background URL bg.jpg, no repeat, center fixed. Now we say no repeat because we don't want the background image to tile itself all over the web page. We just want one background image to cover the entire screen. Now we have to position this image in the very center, both horizontally and vertically. And we want this background image to rescale based on the browser viewport. The second thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the background image covers the entire screen. So background size cover. Now this CSS property may not work on older browsers, so we have to specify prefixes. WebKit is for older versions of Chrome, MOZ is for older versions of Firefox, and O is for older versions of Opera. And there we go. We have the full screen background image already set. Now I'm a huge Pokemon fan, so of course I have to have a Pokemon as my background image, and Umbreon is my favorite Pokemon. But you don't have to have that as your background image. If you want to reproduce the exact same thing, I'll have the image in the description below, as well as the code on JXPhoto and Pastebin. Now, going back to Sublime Text, we're going to have to now do the welcoming text. Now this welcoming text is displayed at the center of the page, and typically all full screen landing pages have that. So the H1 tag is for the heading and the H2 tag is for the heading, subheading. So I have Umbreon as my heading and dark type POC and EACUTE is the French accent code for an upwards accent on the E, obviously close to div. And once we refresh the browser window, you can see that the text is positioned in the top left corner. And we want to reposition that text to the very center of the web page. So we have to target .title, and we have to say position absolute, top 50%, and left 50%. Now refreshing the browser window, and you can see that the text is not positioned in the center. This is because top and left, what this does is it positions the div based on the top edge of the div and the left edge of the div. So it's not based upon the center, and we're going to use a CSS transformation property in order to make sure that the positioning is based upon the center of the div. Transform translate x negative 50% and translate y negative 50%. And there, the text is in the center. Now, just like what we did above with background size cover and the prefixes that we used for that property, we're going to have to use prefixes for this property also. MS is for older versions of Internet Explorer. And I'm just going to copy MS transform and apply that same thing for all the other prefixes that we need. So those are WebKit, MOZ, and Opera. Now that we have that set, we can do some styling on the color, the font weight, and the font sizes and the font family for these headings. Now typically I use Tahoma and as my primary font and the Helvetica Arial Sans Serif badge as my second. So font family Tahoma, Helvetica, Arial Sans Serif. And we have to have that text centered in the that text aligned in the very center. We have to give it a white background because we have to make the text legible since we're already using a very, very dark background. And personally for me, the standard font weight of the H1 and H2 tags is a little too heavy, and we can relegate that back to a thinner or normal font weight. So .title H1, .title H2, font weight normal. And no, I don't want to purchase that. And refreshing that, you can see that the text is much more thinner. So now we're almost done with the title text. What I'm going to do now is change the font sizes of the H1 and H2 tags. I'm going to change the font size of H1 to 42 pixels and the font size of H2 to 30 pixels. And perfect, just like that. So we're almost done. The last thing that we have to do is create some description text, because typically on a full screen landing page, you'll have some text that you can scroll down to that describes more about, well, the new website that you're about to create or something of that nature. Now, we're going to use two divs. One of them is a nested div with the class of inner, and the outer div is access the container with the class of content. And I'll explain why we need this later. Now, I've already prepared some dummy text for demonstration purposes, and I'm just going to copy that from online Notepad. And whoops, I didn't copy that text. And now it should be fine. Again, the text is positioned in the top left corner, and we have to shift it 100% down below the background image. So we need to shift all of this text all the way down. So this is where the nested div comes into play, because content, what this div is responsible for is the positioning of the text. So position absolute, top 100%, left 0, width 100%. This is going to cover the entire width of the web page and shift it 100% down. So it's positioned properly, but we have to add some background to it to have a semantic difference between that text, the description text, and the full screen background image. So I'm going with a relatively dark background simply because we already have a very dark background to begin with. Background RGB 60, color RGB 255, which is white, and font family Tahoma, Helvetica Arial, Sans Serif. So that already looks pretty good. However, the text is a little bit claustrophobic, and we need to apply some CSS styles to fix that. And this is where the inner div comes into play, because the inner div is what's responsible for things such as width, such as margin, such as padding, such as line height. All the things that make the text readable. So here I specify width 80%, we need to center that. So I'm going to say margin 0 auto, that does the job, and we're going to have to increase the vertical padding. So padding top 45 pixels, padding bottom 45 pixels, and line height 130%. As you can see here, the lines don't have adequate spacing in between them. And there you go. We have a full screen background landing page. It's pretty sweet and neat. Also notice that the web page rescales and resizes very well. So that's particularly useful if you're on a mobile browser or anything of that sort. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.